HPXLOTM, please call me Mr. Error by author Hoyne_Kyoma. Chapter 536 to 539. Welcome to Fanfic Audiobook, your go-to place for immersive audiobooks. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories. And please support the author by link in description. Loki stepped onto the spiral staircase, letting it take him up towards Dumbledore's office while he hummed a random tune he remembered from long ago. The journey up to the highest point in the tower was mostly silent until Loki arrived right outside the door to Dumbledore's office. "It's all right, Severus, we don't need to place him in protective custody. I'm sure the true god he dealt with made sure of his safety after the mission was finished." "You don't know him like I do," Snape hissed. "He is vengeful, remarkably so. I understand, Severus, but I'm sure the true god of the darkness pathway has already thought of it." "But, knock knock." Loki knocked on the door politely since apparently none inside it had sensed him standing outside, causing them to pause as Dumbledore spoke agedly. "Please come in, Loki." Loki walked in unhesitatingly. He looked at Professor Snape and spoke quickly first. "I'm happy I didn't see you there, Professor." Snape, ever the artist, held his head up in pride as he hmpfed before folding his hands along with his robes to look like a bat hanging the right side up as he brought them closer together to ward off the chill of the descending night. Loki then turned towards Dumbledore and spoke softly. "You asked for my presence, Headmaster." Dumbledore's eyes glimmered as he looked at Loki before speaking equally softly. "Severus here was worried for you after your recent accomplishments. We only needed to be assured that nothing untoward would come of it, either towards you or your fellow students." Loki nodded slowly before speaking. "You can sense it, can't you, Headmaster?" "Sense? Sense what specifically?" "The curse of misfortune on those who decide to attack me directly," Loki replied calmly. Dumbledore was silent for a few seconds as he gazed at Snape for a few seconds before speaking up. "I can. Well, let's just say that it has already taken care of Voldemort even thinking of retaliating against me directly." "And what about indirectly? What if he chooses to attack the dunderheads you call friends?" Snape interjected. Loki only shrugged casually to it as he explained. "Aren't we already inside the castle? Won't we be safe here? Or is that too much to ask, Professor?" Snape fell silent. Indeed, the students were safe inside the castle. The risk of keeping the students here had never increased. After all, Harry Potter, the original target of Voldemort, already stayed inside it, so the risk of safety to each student was already the same as before. Dumbledore nodded, seemingly understanding Loki's reasoning in the same way as Snape before he spoke warmly while stroking his beard. "I need to speak about certain matters with Loki alone, so if you would please, Severus." Snape looked at Dumbledore and then at Loki with a frown as Loki shrugged, indicating he didn't know what Dumbledore was going to talk to him about before gathering his robes in a spin and leaving the headmaster's office. It was only after the spinning staircase stopped moving once again to indicate that Snape had left that Dumbledore began speaking. "Mr. Loki Black, it has come to my attention that these belong to you," Dumbledore said softly, holding a worm of time palmed in his hand. Loki leaned in to examine the worm of time carefully before saying shamelessly, "I think it belongs to my lord." Dumbledore, who had been observing Loki carefully, nodded. "I understand. Shall I deliver it to him myself or could I trouble you instead?" Loki shrugged. "That's up to you." Loki didn't want Merlin, who was currently inhabiting Dumbledore, to think at all that Loki was worried about being affected in some way because Dumbledore possessed a worm of time that belonged to him. Loki was already using the grey fog to appear like an ordinary Sequence 4 demigod, so he wanted Merlin to think he was an ignorant Sequence 4, one that didn't know much about the world, to make Merlin think that he had the upper hand in whatever bargain he was about to propose. And propose Merlin did. "Since it might be ill-advised for me to hold on to your lord's effigy, I shall hand it over to you. In return, could you ask your lord to complete his end of the deal?" Loki reached to take the worm of time that Dumbledore was holding but paused as if only just remembering something before he asked, "And what do I get in return?" Dumbledore's brows lifted as he adjusted his glasses for a second before speaking softly. "Of course, why don't I give you a prophecy?" "A prophecy?" Loki asked, slightly puzzled since Dumbledore wasn't known for seeing prophecies. Rather, as a Sequence 1 author he should have been known for being capable of making them. So would Dumbledore make a new prophecy for Loki, using the quill of Alzuhud to make it come true? Dumbledore opened the drawer nearest to him on his desk before drawing out a special quill from it. Loki was half tempted to steal it but remained calm and collected since he could now feel distinctly that the quill was tied to the castle, meaning he would have to steal the castle to steal the quill. And while Loki could actually steal something the size of the castle, Loki didn't think he could directly steal the castle, yet. Especially since he couldn't even open a door inside it. Why was that the case? Loki did not know, but he could feel it being so. Dumbledore then unfurled the pages of fate that he could see before he began to scribble something on it in a handwriting that Loki couldn't quite read because of how terrible it was. Even still, Loki learned of its effects by reading the changes it brought about in his own fate. I will advance to sequence 0 of the error pathway within the next year. Ho! Loki nearly mumbled out loud but controlled himself to still hold on to that persona of a new and naive demigod of his pathway that was in awe of whatever Dumbledore was currently doing. Finally, after sheathing the quill back into its drawer, Dumbledore spoke wisely. I have prophesied that your lord will return in the next year. Loki nodded softly, showing an obliviously excited expression before grabbing the worm of time now placed on the desk between them and quickly bowing to Dumbledore and leaving the headmaster's office. Only on the way out of the office, Loki was genuinely excited by Dumbledore's prophecy. What Dumbledore had written using the Quill of Alzuhud was most definitely a reflection of his conversation with him in the primordial chaos's hold, however Loki had only been bluffing then about reviving soon. After all, how would he know when he would revive fully when he didn't even know the location of the next sequence 1 Beander characteristics location? But now that the advancement had been turned into a certainty with the help of the Quill of Alzuhud, Loki was obviously going to advance to a sequence 0 true god sooner than later. After all, at this point if Loki wanted he could divine the location of the 3 Beander characteristics using he prophecy Dumbledore had made as a starting point and then quickly obtain them and advance to sequence 0. With that, Loki returned to his favorite place in the entire castle. The Room of Requirements. Thankfully no one else was currently using it and hence Loki entered it quite seamlessly without having to use his secret entrance compartment into the place that he had constructed and left behind after studying its layout. Almost as soon as Loki entered the place he was greeted by his everlasting problem, the crystals that held the 2 remaining true gods he had to free, Godric Gryffindor and Helga Hufflepuff. Should I revive them now? Would I even get anything worth it anymore after reviving them now that I've become a sequence 2? But reviving them will put me on their radar once again and let me demand my rewards, otherwise they might hold onto the full blasphemy card that I need. But can I hold onto reviving them until I get the card? Or can I do something better? Can I revive them and ask for an even greater reward by mixing the 2 things together? Let's see what Helga rewards me first with. Loki traced Helga's spirit body thread and found it connected as usual to a spot in Gringotts, so Loki flicked his wrist and stole the distance between the end and the beginning of the spirit body thread by deceiving its distance to perform a miraculous theft. As soon as the other end of the spirit body thread became visible, Loki grabbed it mid-air and examined it carefully. Is this Helga's wine goblet? Loki wondered as he studied the Hufflepuff cup that had been turned into a Horcrux in his hands. Without regard for the soul inside it, Loki stole it with a flick of his wrist, causing a ghastly scream to erupt from it as Voldemort's soul found itself dying slowly and being sealed away before Loki tossed the cup into Helga's basket. Loki didn't hide himself this time. He wished to show the founders that he had returned, especially since he had unpaid debts to collect from one of them. The golden basket into which he had placed the goblet shivered, trembling as a wisp of ethereal fragment flowed out from the crystal and examined it carefully. The wisp paused in retreat for a second as if shocked and surprised at what it was seeing. Almost immediately after that, however, the wisp exploded in power as it completely engulfed the goblet, drowning it in a thick essence of spirituality that Loki found and felt blinding in power. It radiated a light so bright Loki felt his eyes melt. But he persisted this time, however, by deceiving the bright light and making its target not himself but the worm of time in his hand. Loki felt relief almost immediately as he found himself looking at a rather mystical scene. Within the bright storm of light that was radiating outwards, something from the ceiling descended down onto the crystal, something ethereal, something human in shape and form, only without any details, or perhaps details changing so rapidly that Loki couldn't observe them soon enough. It leaned close to the whatever was locked inside the crystal and gently knocked it with its fingers. The glass of the crystal cracked in rhythmic clinks before it shattered to reveal the being trapped inside. It was the goddess of the two pathways, Helga Hufflepuff. Loki automatically mumbled, but his eyes remained glued to the being that had descended from the castle itself. The figure looked at him too, even though it did not have any eyes or a mouth. Loki looked at the figure and felt a rather strange sense of familiarity with it, one that he couldn't immediately place since he felt the limits of his memories there. Who is she? Loki thought to himself, noting the obvious use of the word, she, but he still couldn't find it in himself to give the figure a name. Hogwarts? Loki asked, but the figure had had its fill of looking at Loki since it descended back into the ceiling and vanished. At the same time, the light show that was Helga had already vanished, leaving behind something in her begging bowl. Loki leaned over to examine the item and became shocked almost instantly. The item in question was a crystalline pillar of light and shadow, housing swiftly swimming 12 segmented worms of time around which everything nearby seemed frozen. Is this a sequence 1 worm of time Beander characteristic? Loki nearly screamed out his lungs. A note remained underneath it all, but Loki didn't have the patience to even reach for it at the moment. And Mr. Error saved the day by fighting with the primordial chaos and removing corruption from everyone. Hermione finished writing in her diary about her latest adventure and its conclusion. This was her part in doing the acting required for her sequence as a scribe. She was diligently making note of all things that happened in her life like a scribe would. Almost as soon as Hermione finished making a note of the final ending in her diary, she felt her potion digest greatly with a clear indication. However, she didn't stop there. Dipping the quill in an ink pot, Hermione continued. Loki reappeared recently. I turned back to the older pages in my diary and he was mentioned in them once again. The moment I regained memories related to him, I nearly felt my heart break. Had Loki done something too dangerous and then died for the sealed artifact keeping him a secret from the world to fail? Had I lost him like I had Daphne a while back? The world kept spinning as Daphne calmed me down and tried to keep me sane. How could I forget that Mr. Error had proclaimed that Loki was a sacrificial vessel for his resurrection in the abyss? How could I forget that he had recovered Daphne and given her a new body in the abyss? I was worried that Loki was lost, that perhaps Mr. Error had hidden him from the world because his purpose as a resurrection vessel had been fulfilled. Perhaps Loki had died in the process, and Mr. Error only saw fit to release his memories back into the world as memoirs, so that the world would remember him without interfering in the process of him taking over him. Only at that fateful moment and all flew into the empty classroom we were in to deliver us our daily Hogwarts Honest Mill newspapers, a little bit late now that I think about it, but I hadn't realized then, for Loki's memories had kept me up all night long, haunting me, keeping me needing my bed and hoping for any signs of his presence. I ignored my paper, for nothing could take my mind off Loki's disappearance and possible death. However, Daphne, ever the calm heiress, searched it for something to possibly quell my rising fear in the sea of silence. Perhaps she sensed the changes it would display. And she did find something. Surprisingly, Loki had reported on you-know-who's plan to kill Harry at the end of the school year. And while that did surprise me a little, I wasn't quite taken by it, since Harry usually faced some trouble at the end of the year as if routine. What took me by storm was that Loki had reported it, and that he had taken a video of the whole proclamation. How did Loki do it? I asked Daphne, but surprisingly the heiress too didn't seem to know about this. She was equally surprised. A way to remain unhidden from a sequence 2 angel. I don't think that's even possible with the help of a true god without the angel figuring out that something is wrong, let alone normally. I remember Daphne explaining to me. And I nodded along. After all, you-know-who was able to hear the mention of his name. How could he not know that Loki was recording him? And so my fear multiplied. Had Loki perished in the process of filming you-know-who? I didn't know. And since Daphne didn't have an answer to my question either, we rushed to Professor McGonagall. Only Professor McGonagall seemed to have gone over to Hospital Wing to check on Harry, which left us with nowhere to turn to but the Black Lake to calm ourselves. At the Black Lake we met Hagrid, who was equally worried about Loki and proposed that we write a letter to Madame Black to find out if he was alright or not, since any letters to Loki himself might get lost or worse, reveal his location if he was hiding. I was just about to write that letter when Hagrid heard a unicorn neigh in the pumpkin patch just outside his hut. We all rushed out and found standing there, the person we all wished to see the most. None other than Loki. My heart beat out of my chest as I gave him a warm hug. It had been too long since I'd met him and felt his hand on my bushy head. All I remember were his final words to me in the abyss, "You're getting late." And now I wanted to repeat those words to him, "You're late." But I held back. It wasn't my place to scold Loki. That job belonged to Daphne. I instead was supposed to take as much of an advantage I could out of the situation to make sure I got him to promise to never let the situation repeat, ever again. And I got that promise. However, the headmaster interrupted that reunion. With all that done, Hermione closed her diary and stuffed it into her book bag underneath all her other thick books because she felt her potion unmistakably fully digested. She then set up a wall of spirituality around her four-poster bed before performing a simple ritual. "Mr. Error, I have digested the Sequence 6 scribe potion fully. I wish to advance, will that be possible?" Loki was about to reach for the Sequence 1 characteristics but heard whispers in his ears almost immediately. "Who's praying to me now?" Sigh. The life of a god is truly devoted to his followers. Loki collected the characteristic and the card and shifted right into the Saphira castle where he spread his spirituality over the pulsating crimson star and observed it deeply. "Hermione. What's she praying to me about so soon? Is it about advancing to a traveler?" Loki heard the prayer after that and felt slightly surprised. How has she digested the Sequence 6 potion so quickly? That's even faster than me. Either way, Loki was satisfied with Hermione's speed, so he was about to give her the Sequence 5 Beander characteristic and tell her the advancement ritual method from the door pathway card of blasphemy. However, he stopped at the last second. "No, I've given her too many freebies until this potion digestion. This time I need to extract a price." Loki crafted a simple response and touched the crimson star. Hermione's vision was flooded with crimson as she saw Mr. Error appear before her. He was calm and collected and surprisingly had gone back to his habit of wrapping his fingers around the table before speaking. "I'm aware. But you do not have enough credit points to advance. You haven't given me enough believers." Hermione's expression of near joy was blocked by an unexpected obstacle and fell as she realized she truly hadn't worked in that regard. She had indeed set up the Dada Club, but she had never called for any meetings in that regard. "A month and a half has passed since you handed me that contract. What became of it?" Mr. Error asked softly. Hermione nodded quickly and spoke up. "I'll work on it immediately, Mr. Error." Loki nodded and ended the connection after that, leaving a slightly restless Hermione and a calmer Loki on both ends. "Feels slightly immoral to extract a price from friends. I should do something for her in real life." With Hermione's business done, Loki looked down at the Sequence 1 Worm of Time Beander characteristic with glee and a hint of madness. It took him a while to extricate himself from it before looking at the card that had come along with it. With this, even if Loki didn't want it, the convergence of Beander characteristics would bring him to the other two Sequence 1 Beander characteristics rather easily since Dumbledore's prophecy was set in stone. "I'd promised to guide you to the next Beander characteristic. This is your reward. P.S. Only you can read this. Don't be too harsh on Rowena when you finally judge her. She was doing her best to keep us all safe." Rowena bit her nails as she looked at the other three friends that had gathered around her. "The Chaos Sea has returned, however it is still protected by that barrier he set up, preventing anyone from entering it. That means the Hanged Man is still inside it. Which means, his advancement ritual to Sequence 0 is still in place. And if he becomes a Sequence 0, he is bound to become a great old one with all the items in the Ministry. And, not to forget, the Primordial Chaos's corruption has receded, meaning that the Primordial Chaos was either killed or coerced in some way. Either way, it doesn't seem like she will be able to break the barrier using the Primordial Chaos anytime soon." Helga reminded, now in her proper form and not an ethereal ghostly figure. Rowena nodded softly and then sighed audibly. "Do you think he'll act against me once he returns? Because we acted against him when his follower said he could travel back in time. Hey, don't group us all into it. Me and Helga only saved him from all of everyone's advances, we didn't hurt the boy." Salazar reminded, prompting everyone to fall into silence until Salazar spoke softly again. "Just now when Helga was freed, I dropped him a little gift. It might be enough to bribe him, but I don't really know." "Bribe? What did you bribe him with?" Rowena asked, puzzled since Mr. Error wasn't known to take bribes when he acted against his wrongdoers. Salazar remained quiet for a few more seconds before explaining, I gave him one of the 3 sequence 1 Worm of Time Beander characteristics. A different silence gripped the table, one of slight fear and worry. You helped him grow stronger. Rowena mumbled, but Salazar only shook his head. He could have divined that location rather easily now, since Merlin prophesied that he would advance to sequence 0 true god status in under a year. I learned of it the second Merlin tried to conceal it. Rowena gasped audibly. Under a year? That fast? Silence reigned around the table once again before Salazar asked Rowena a question few would have dared. Do you have any outstanding debts with his follower? Perhaps if you could appease his follower, maybe he could put in a good word for you. Rowena's face scrunched up. She pondered for a while before she whispered, I think I still need to give him the full card of blasphemy, but what if I also give him the moon card of blasphemy? The moon card? Salazar asked, equally bewildered this time. Why are you so surprised? Helga asked. You haven't told them? Salazar asked with wide-eyed surprise. Rowena only frowned slightly before mumbling, I didn't think it was important enough, it's just that, I hid the uniqueness of the moon pathway in the moon card of blasphemy and handed it over to Salazar. Then why don't you just break it out and hand over the card without it? Godric asked, folding his arms. Rowena shook her head. The card cannot exist without the uniqueness. It will break if it does. I didn't want to look at the moon to divine the pathway formulae and rituals, so I used the uniqueness, but this inexplicably linked the two at the time of creation, call it fate or whatever, but the two are now fused and one cannot exist without the other. Everyone became dumbfounded at the reasonable explanation and couldn't offer any more advice, which led to Rowena asking them all softly, you sure he'll calm down with the moon card? He will, right? After all, it's a uniqueness. Quote. Comma. Loki looked at the card in his hand and suddenly frowned. Is Salazar talking about how they all acted against me when I was about to travel back in time? Well, it wasn't everyone. Salazar and Helga mostly protected me, but Rowena and Godric acted against me almost immediately. Shouldn't they give me something in return then? And what did Helga even give me? She gave me nothing after I resurrected her. It was all Salazar. Where's her gift for me? I forgot then because Salazar's gift was so expensive, but still shouldn't Helga have at least given me a drop of her blood? I'll make sure I'll let them off whatever hook it is that I'm letting them off only after fleecing them of all they've got. Rowena must give me the full card of blasphemy and something else alongside it of equal value. Helga must give me something as precious as a flaring sun charm that is on true god level. And Godric must give me compensation equal to Rowena. With all the punishments said and done, Loki decided it was time to free Dumbledore or Merlin from his corruption. So Loki acted swiftly. He traced his fate and studied how it was intertwined with Dumbledore before swiftly performing a theft and stealing the man's corruption. The corruption appeared in his hands as a ball of pulsating but slightly damaged worm of time-shaped spirit that Loki looked at with interest. So he did try to get rid of the corruption on his own, but gave up when he realized it was mixed in with a Sephiroth's. Well, good thing I mixed it in, otherwise I wouldn't have been able to get a prophecy that allowed me to advance to sequence 0 in a year. Now should I just divine the location of the other sequence 1 worms of time Beander characteristic with the help of the prophecy? Or can I just ask everyone else to pay me with the Beander characteristics as compensation like Salazar? To reduce my workload. After all, Salazar was the one to set the price so high for the compensation, wasn't he? So I'm sure the others won't mind showing equal sincerity. With all that done, Loki finally turned to the locket around his neck. He hadn't opened it yet for the fear of having lost his sister, however he knew he had to face it eventually. So he gripped the locket firmly before slowly opening it and looking at the little figure that was on the other side. Quote. Elaine, Loki mumbled. 2 big eyes opened up softly on the other side before soft but sweet words flowed out. Quote. Big brother, comma. Elaine, Loki said in a heartfelt tone, even though he couldn't help but notice how deep her eyes had become. It was as if the depth of an ocean resided in their gaze. Big brother. Elaine squealed with joy, her voice comforting to hear and soothing for Loki as he posed his first question to her. So, you're the moon goddess? Elaine quickly shook her head. Elaine is only a remnant will that was reborn. Elaine doesn't even have her past memories. All Elaine knows is that she has control over the moon. Loki sighed in relief, since that meant that their bond had never been a lie. But then he asked her his second question: why did Elaine never tell Big Brother that she could control the moon? Elaine's gaze fell, filled with sadness and self-blame as she looked at Loki with a gaze filled with betrayal. Elaine is telling the truth. I am telling the truth. I didn't know that I could control the moon until I met that man. That man? Loki asked softly, confused and slightly bewildered. Severus Snape is his name. Elaine is currently hiding in his teeth. He is a kind man that Auntie Cassandra asked to hide Elaine for now. A flicker of something lit up in Loki as he realized, of course. Since Loki was only a sequence 4 at the time that he had made Elaine her necklace so that they could always stay connected, Snape's concealment over the connection worked flawlessly since he too was a sequence 4. So when he stored Elaine away inside his spirit world storage for spirits, the connection was broken and Loki could no longer see Elaine in her mirror. But now that he was a sequence 2 angel, he could automatically decrypt Elaine's location even through the mirror without any problems and communicate with her. Are there any weird creatures there? Loki asked Elaine immediately out of worry, but Elaine only gave him a silly laugh. Hee, yes. There is a dog with many eyes. It is very fluffy and has a lot of teeth. It lets me ride on its back all the time and lets me give it cute little pets. It is a good doggy. Elaine's distraught eyes instantly turned light and upwards as she looked at Loki with obvious joy while petting the air as if the dog was right there by her side. Loki remembered the dog that Snape had with him when Loki had tried stealing potion ingredients from him and nodded. If it was that dog, then Elaine's preliminary safety shouldn't be a problem. But then Elaine instantly frowned and became mock angry with Loki. Ah, what happened to my cute little sister? Who made her angry? Elaine humphed and snorted out a name: Big Brother Loki. Oh, how did Big Brother make little Elaine angry? Elaine finally looked at Loki and then spoke teary-eyed. Big Brother does so many dangerous things, Elaine cannot save him all the time. Elaine saved Big Brother? Loki asked, surprised since he didn't remember Elaine doing so. Yes. Elaine nodded righteously. When Big Brother called all gods, Elaine redirected the moonlight in that dark and dangerous place and saved Big Brother from going mad. Oh, Loki suddenly remembered the point in time when Elaine had done so in the abyss by redirecting the crimson light away from him, and nodded sagely before whispering back to her, since Elaine saved Big Brother will do any one thing that Elaine asks. What does Elaine want? Elaine too was quick on the uptake. Elaine wants Big Brother to bring her the uniqueness of the moon pathway. That way Elaine can protect Big Brother better. Ah, alright. Done. Big Brother will bring Elaine her uniqueness. Alright. Humu. Okay then, tell Big Brother what else little Elaine can do. Elaine can summon scary creatures from the spirit world. Elaine can make potions. Elaine can cure Big Brother's corruption. Elaine can do a lot more with uniqueness in her hand. Haha, alright, you can already do so much. Big Brother will get you the uniqueness too soon somehow, don't worry. Humu. If Elaine is inside Professor Snape's teeth, Big Brother will meet Elaine tomorrow, is that alright? Okay. Elaine wants to meet Big Brother too. Haha, good. This way Elaine and Big Brother can become an unstoppable duo and break every rule there is to break at Hogwarts. Elaine can attend Hogwarts. Snape is very stingy, he said Elaine is not allowed to go outside. Don't worry, I will ask Professor Snape to leave you alone for some time and then we can play together, okay? Okay. Elaine wants to meet Big Brother's friends too. Big Brother already met Elaine's friends, so it's right for Elaine to meet Big Brother's friends. Humu. Then Elaine can have even more friends. Haha, sure, then does Elaine want any other gift from Big Brother? Elaine wants to see the big dragon at school. Sure, we'll see Norberta when you meet my friends. You can also see my unicorn friends if we have time. Cool. Then I can tell my friends that I saw a big dragon at a magical school. Now that Voldemort is back, do I need fudge anymore? Not a very difficult question, is it? No more fudge then, let him die peacefully in his sleep after losing control and being killed by the unspeakables. With that, Dumbledore pulled out the quill of Alzuhud and began to write an heir. Because of losing support from his biggest supporter Albus Dumbledore, Cornelius Fudge suffered a heartbreak and lost control because of the pressure from Voldemort's return. The unspeakables had to unfortunately put him down. In a place elsewhere, Fudge was holed up inside his room, worried and frightened as he paced around with great speed, wondering what Dumbledore would do with him next now that it was out in the open that Voldemort had returned. Will he withdraw his hidden support from me? Can I sacrifice something to regain his support? All of a sudden Fudge's body that was already under great stress suffered a terrible heartache. Fudge gasped wildly as he clenched his chest, collapsing to his right knee as he had a sudden and fatal stroke. Am I going to die here? No, 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 that can't be the case. I must live. Fudge struggled constantly, his gasps coming out in spurts as his heart stopped and started, flickering between life and death. His words started to be drowned by silence as they grew weaker and weaker, losing the effect of pain clawing at life that they had begun with. Everything seemed to indicate that Fudge would meet his certain end tonight, in the comfort of his very home. However, a gleam caught his eye at the last second and Fudge decided to struggle for a while longer, his nails clipping the floor as he gasped for his breath and crawled towards the final item that could save him from certain death. An item he had received from the cosmos as a gift on the certain day of his coronation. It was a strange lamp. Fudge attempted to grab the lamp, his hands trembling and his fingers grasping at straws as he dragged himself to it and slammed his hand over it to knock it off the display table and onto the floor. It clattered with a clang as its cover went flying off. However, what was revealed inside surprised and shocked Fudge. A mist of uncertain nature flowed out of the lamp that had lost its cover. It hovered faintly over Fudge as he gasped out a prayer in pain and defeat. I will do whatever it takes to live, just let me live. The mist then rushed into Fudge, entering through his orifices before consuming his very being by merging with it completely. Fudge stood up calmly not long after, tidying up his suit that had gotten crumpled in the action, before walking up to the mirror and giving himself a wide warm smile. Fudge held his hand out and looked at it for a second as he studied it carefully. Only seconds later his hand exploded into an uncertain fog that shifted unnaturally before it coalesced back into his fist. His gasping voice vanished as he spoke fluently without any pauses. Yes, my lord, it shall be done. Suddenly, however, there was a knock on the door that caused Fudge to frown in distaste. He looked at the door and redid his smile on his face before walking up to it and opening the door slowly. Yes? Fudge asked the man on the other side, who looked bewildered to see Fudge completely fine and alive while holding a crimson glowing stone that spooked him a little bit. Minister, we thought you died. Died? What nonsense, I'm feeling perfectly fine. Who is it that told you I died? They must be losing control and have gone mad. Have them thrown out immediately. Yes, Minister. The unspeakable rushed back to the ministry at great speed, foregoing the need for travel by directly apparating to a special box in the department where apparition was allowed by the miracle of their superior Madame Laura. And so he ran back to Laura's office without delay. Knock, knock, knock. 3 desperate knocks later the door opened by itself to reveal a simple office space sitting in which was a beautiful woman. Yes, Madame Laura. The divination department was wrong. Again. Wrong. How? Laura asked, taking interest immediately. Minister Fudge is not dead yet. In fact, he seems to be alive and well. Laura's eyes widened. This had been an event she had been looking forward to for weeks already, since Madame Bones had planned to compete and ascend to the throne of the British Wizarding Isles. They had gotten an inkling to this divination as early as 3 weeks ago, only for it to be further confirmed today morning. She and the entire department had been prepared to collect his dead body that would have seemingly lost control after listening to the news about Voldemort's return revealed in the Hogwarts Honest Mill paper in the evening. But her subordinate was saying he wasn't dead. Are you sure it was him? And not someone impersonating him? Yes, Madame Laura, I was holding the divination correction item in my hand while I met the man himself. And it was glowing a deep shade of crimson during the time I met him. The divination turned out to be false. Impossible. Laura spoke up almost immediately. There was only a single reason that the divination could have failed, and that would be because of the involvement of a true god. But Fudge had been vetted thoroughly. He didn't have connections with any true gods. So how did he live? Was it truly because of some last-minute intervention of a true god? The subordinate in front of her didn't seem to be lying, and instead seemed only sure of himself as he held out the gem that was glowing a deep crimson in color. She paused and spoke quietly, "You may return," before watching as her subordinate looked rather unsure of her decision before he nodded and saluted before turning around and leaving her office. Laura then quickly pulled out a parchment and scribbled something onto it with a quill. She called upon her messenger and sent away a message to her superior, Madame Bones. If true gods were really involved, then the matter was already far above her pay grade. Now Madame Bones would be the one to handle it regardless of what it ended up as. Whether Fudge really had the backing of a true god or even why he had such a backing, it was up to Madame Bones to figure it out. Still awake after the call with Elaine, Loki pondered about how he would get the uniqueness of the moon pathway for her. Surely Salazar has it, doesn't he? If he doesn't, I can just ask Rowena to get it for me, right? Yeah, those guys betrayed me according to my plan, now they must repay me according to my plan too. After his mind was set on the matter, Loki dialed up the number of his closest parents after Walburga. He created a new two-way mirror-like device that he used to connect with Elaine and teleported its position to a destination only he remembered apart from its owners. Miles away, Nicholas, who was still recuperating in his workshop, felt a soft shift in space in the wards he had designed. Something entered the house. Was it a meteorite? Nicholas immediately pulled up the house wards to check exactly where the ward had been tripped before realizing that it tripped in the same room he was in. He quickly looked around and spotted the harmless-looking object placed in an inconspicuous spot in his workshop. Who sent me this? Through the spirit were. Nicholas's words remained frozen on his tongue as he spotted the image on the other end of the mirror before he nearly screamed out his lungs. Loki. Not even seconds later, Perenelle arrived in the room only to find an animatedly chatting Nicholas, who she pushed aside to peer into the mirror he was talking to. Loki. Perenelle screamed as well, but she was quick to complain. You don't know how worried we were after we regained our memories. The last thing we remembered was leaving you behind in the abyss. If we hadn't divined that you were safe already, we would have rushed back in there. Loki blushed with embarrassment as he ducked lightly before speaking. I was busy. Yeah, we read your exposé. Nicholas entered the frame once again. Is it true? Loki nodded. It is. Voldemort wanted to kill Harry Potter and then extract the widespread despair from the wizarding world to advance to Sequence 1. But what about the characteristics? Perenelle asked calmly, since she knew well that a Sequence 1 and a true god couldn't exist in the same pathway, at least usually. Loki shrugged. I didn't figure that out. But I might soon enough, since I have a spy planted by his side. Spy? Who? Perenelle asked, curious about the person who was risking their life for Loki, but since he couldn't say it was himself, Loki came up with a different answer. It's an item I planted on one of his closest followers. As long as his follower thinks about him, I'll be informed of his thoughts. Perenelle heaved a sigh of relief, but Nicholas asked a question just to make sure there was no risk involved. Are you sure he won't be able to trace the item back to you? Loki nearly smiled. Trace it back to me? The man is me myself. If he doesn't trace that back to me, then I'd be stupid. In reality, however, Loki shook his head. Don't worry about all that, Nick. Perenelle, I'm perfectly fine. All that's taken care of since I did it all with the help of the Darkness Pathway True God. Perenelle and Nicholas finally fully relaxed at that and changed the topic of conversation. How are you doing then? In the deep darkness underneath the castle, Voldemort awoke to a soft whisper. Now that your plan has been exposed, what do you plan to do? Voldemort looked around for a second before realizing that the whisper came from his own sea of subconscious, which was in part corrupted by an outer deity, Mother Tree of Desire. The corruption pulsed and growed before settling in place as it contained its spread before speaking once again. How are you going to advance now? Not an avatar wanting to kill himself so easily, Voldemort spoke quickly and reverentially with a deeply bowed head that nearly touched the floor. I shall act on it regardless. They know nothing about my plan apart from the fact that it has been laid out. I will deal with the one who leaked it soon enough, and then I will know who it was that helped him achieve such a feat. It will likely be Salazar. Killing him will be a difficult task for you right now, and will only be possible once you take on the mantle of the Father of Devils. But how will I get the Sequence 1 Beyander characteristic without killing him? Don't worry about that. I will grant you a boon. So as long as you finish the ritual, you will advance as usual to a Sequence 1 angel, then you can challenge Farbati and take his seat. Voldemort nodded obediently before another question was thrown his way. What happened to the preparations you made earlier? Confused for a second, Voldemort soon realized that Mother Tree of Desire was talking about his burning human candles and his wailing skulls before coughing up a response in a hurry. I moved them to a different location in case Dumbledore figures out where I was keeping them previously. Understandable, but make sure it is present at the time of advancement. Otherwise the entire ritual will be for naught. Of course, I know to do something so basic. Voldemort agreed softly and remained bowed in his position for a few more seconds before he felt the presence that had existed right beside him vanish just as suddenly as it had arrived. Damn, where do I get those wailing skulls and burning human candles from once again? I already freed them after the main body asked me to free them. Well, not my problem, I'll just push the responsibility to the main body. He won't really mind, right? After all, it was his order that caused me to free them up. Damn this reincarnation and resurrection of overlords. It keeps messing up the work culture of us avatars. It was early in the morning and Loki was currently inside the room of requirements, having just finished talking to Nicholas and Perenelle. His mind, however, was on the latest message he had received from his Voldemort avatar. So Mother Tree of Desire wants Voldemort to finish his advancement ritual before she blesses him with a boon. I see, that makes sense that she would be able to do that temporarily until Voldemort regains Father of Devil status. Either way, this should allow me to regain the Abyss for Farbati too. I could get him to fake loose to me before gaining the Abyss from Mother Tree of Desire and then handing it back over to Farbati at a price. But what price should I ask from Farbati if that's the case? Should I simply ask him for a favor? Or should I ask him to become a follower of Mr. Error? Well, who knows what I'll need in the future, I'll just ask him for a favor and then leave it at that. After all, I'm sure he'll be eager to fulfill his part of the deal with me on his own after that, since no one wants to owe Mr. Error a favor. That's nice and all, but my current biggest worry is the fact that I don't know how to finish my advancement ritual for my sequence 1 Worm of Time. To plunge a city into temporal chaos for at least 7 days. Can I just make a mystical item from the sequence 1 Beander characteristics and use that to steal time from various people in the region? That could be one way, but that would be rather weak for an advancement ritual. Or I could ask for the help of the Fate Goddess, and make her fix an area in a constant reboot so that an entire region is trapped in a fixed time for 7 days. After all, the Goddess of Fortune also owes me a wish because the past me chose to listen to her advice and wait for me to reach original creator level before reincarnating. Is there something else I can do? Something where I don't have to depend on other gods? If things got worse, I could wake up the primordial chaos and ask my past self to help me by placing everyone into a time loop, couldn't I? That would just be me depending on my original body and not anyone else. What about those time turners in the ministry though? I could use them too, could I not? I should contact Laura again. Her husband probably freed himself when we last fought the outer gods in the Abyss. So I should be able to make do of the contract she promised me too. To be able to experiment with the time turners in the Unspeakables department. Good job past me. Loki praised himself shamelessly. Alright then, time for Rowena to pay for her debts. Loki collected himself inside the room of requirements before performing a simple ritual by decrypting the ritual steps necessary for contacting the Ravenclaw house head. I pray for the power of knowledge. I pray for the power of progress. I pray for Goddess's loving grace. I pray for the Goddess to reveal herself to me so that she can compensate our shared Lord appropriately. Eye of the Spider, a part that belongs to the great longing of knowledge, I pray for you to bestow your powers to my incantation. Tongue of the Sphinx, a part that belongs to the great longing of knowledge, I pray for you to bestow your powers to my incantation. As Loki completed the incantation, burning the appropriate sacrificial pieces, he found the candle representing her, turning a deep shade of blue. For a second it mesmerized Loki to the extent that he found himself enchanted enough to try and catch it, only breaking out of it when the candlelight flickered. A heavy presence filled Loki's being after that. He dared not lift his head for the risk of angering the great Bine. Why the hell do I care about that? I'm the blessed of Mr. Error. No other can hold a candle to him. And I woke up this damn lady who doesn't have an alarm clock myself, damn it. As soon as Loki mumbled that, the presence felt a little less burdening as Loki looked straight up at the lady dressed in a robe as blue as the ocean itself. Loki's gaze scanned the face looking down on him with clear annoyance before he stood up and spoke in a demanding tone. He asks for your sincerity. Rowena's brows visibly twitched at Loki's lack of courtesy, but knowing that he was a fanatic who would bow only to Mr. Error, she let it be. Instead she handed Loki 2 cards directly. Loki grabbed the 2 cards and studied them carefully. One was the Fool card he was already promised, while the other was the Moon card. He looked back up at Rowena in confusion. The meaning clear. The hell was he supposed to do with the Moon card? Was risking his life and Mr. Error's chance at resurrection only worth a single card of blasphemy? Fortunately for him, Rowena nudged him to open the Moon card of blasphemy. And Loki was glad he did. For as soon as he did, a miracle occurred. A crimson orb as beautiful as the moon herself appeared in front of Loki. The uniqueness. Loki nearly screamed out his mind, but then calmed down and spoke with an equanimous stare. This was what the Lord already planned to obtain at the right time. Where's your sincerity? Loki stared right into Rowena's eyes as he said this, since his past self had already planned to raise the moon goddess once again as his sister. If that was the case, then the uniqueness that Rowena had was only gotten as a consequence of that plan, nothing more, nothing less. It was like returning a licked candy to a child after taking it from them and claiming that it was payment for causing emotional distress. Rowena's brows twitched again. She looked at the still frozen Godric's soul before looking at the Gryffindor sword in Dumbledore's office before finally looking at Loki with a frown and mumbling. So unfair. Only along with that she handed over a simple paper crane to Loki. Paper crane. Loki looked at it with some confusion before his eyes widened as he remembered. Will Osepton, the goddess of fortune. This is a way to contact the goddess of fortune. A feat his past self had completely failed to achieve. Loki's eyes widened at the item he had just received. Is she being serious right now? How does she have this? How did the goddess of fortune even know about paper cranes and Will Osepton? Isn't that an original LOTM reference? Or do all fate pathway beyonders eventually make paper cranes? Loki calmed his freaking out mind by simply reminding himself that Rowena was still present before him, and so he looked at her blandly and responded calmly as if the items she had provided were nothing too important. Mr. Error will discuss the rest of the payment with you shortly. Thank you for your cooperation. I'm sure Mr. Error will be pleased. Rowena frowned but said nothing to Loki, knowing that Loki after all was just a follower of Mr. Error and not someone who knew the true value of the things she had given him. She was sure Mr. Error would be thoroughly surprised at the opportunity she had provided him with. With that settled, Rowena ended the ritual by blowing out the candle with her simultaneous disappearance. Loki collapsed onto a comfortable chair as he looked at the items in his hands. That was fruitful. The Fool Pathway card of blasphemy to complete the set. The Moon Pathway uniqueness. And a way to contact the goddess of fortune. Should I sleep and talk to her right now or save it for a rainy day? How'd I even know if it'll work only once or until the paper is destroyed? Well, I better not waste it. How many ever times it can be used? Loki's gaze stilled before it slipped to the final crystal in the room. Now all that's left is Godric. I free him and all the founders would have been freed. The question is, should I free him? I'm sure if I steal the Gryffindor sword right now, Dumbledore will have some way of figuring out that I took it, so I better leave it for when I'm absolutely sure that I either need to awaken him immediately or when I am confident I'll leave no traces behind of my theft. With that, Loki finally closed his eyes for some time. It was early in the morning and so there wasn't enough time to properly rest, but Loki was already a Sequence 2 angel, so it didn't matter much. With a giddy expression that was completely out of place with the rest of the castle that was worried for its and Harry's safety, Loki rushed as soon as he woke up towards the dungeons. Wherever Loki turned to look, all he saw was people crossing their fingers in prayers to whatever great gods they knew, be it Merlin or Morgana or even Harry Potter himself, to keep them safe from the upcoming harm that Voldemort was probably going to rain on them. Loki half had the urge to laugh and make fun of the people since he knew there was no harm from Voldemort. In fact, Loki wanted to go so far as painting a picture of Voldemort in the Great Hall just to terrorize the people of the castle, but he resisted. After all, not everyone shared his sense of humor, especially the teachers. Elaine, Loki shouted as soon as he reached outside Snape's office, calling for his little sister like there was no tomorrow. And even before Snape could respond, the Potion Master's office door opened as a small little girl that barely reached Loki's waist appeared through it. Loki. The little girl squealed in joy before latching onto his thigh like a baby koala. I'm back, Loki said happily to the little girl, giving an open show to the rest of the people passing by Snape's office. However, Loki wasn't worried about exposing Elaine to other people now. After all, what could they, if anyone, do to a former true god that still held her authority even if only partially? Tell me, has the Batman been treating you well or has he scared you senseless? Loki asked, looking at the approaching professor who was already dressed in his bat-like robes. Elaine pretended to ponder for a while, which caused Snape's brows to twitch before she spoke softly. No, Elaine doesn't have any complaints apart from the fact that Uncle Snape does not let me eat sweets. Huh, why no sweets, haha. Loki looked at Snape with raised eyebrows and an amused expression. After all, Elaine was a true god if only in name. She would still not get toothaches since no germs strong enough existed which could harm her physical form. In fact, Elaine's plump figure at the start of Loki's transmigration should have been the biggest clue as to something being wrong with Elaine. After all, there was no way, no matter how much the Loki before the current Loki arrived, shared with Elaine, she was going to get fat in that dump of a place they were living in. So her apparent chubbiness should have instantly put Loki on edge. I guess I didn't think of it before because my mind tried to avoid the fact subconsciously. Snape opened the office door and let Loki come inside with Elaine, where the two of them immediately broke into a hurry to consume a bunch of snacks that Snape had placed on the table beforehand. Elaine because it had been a long time since she had had snacks properly, and Loki because he was still joyous for the fact that he had resurrected. Elaine, Big Brother has a gift for you, Loki said softly while pulling out the moon card of blasphemy right in front of Snape. Snape's eyes widened looking at the card of blasphemy, but he made no moves to take it from Loki's hands, a true testament to his self-control. Only the second Elaine grabbed it and opened it by pouring in her spirituality, she inadvertently revealed the crimson ball, the moon that was the uniqueness of the moon pathway. It nearly caused Snape to step forward and grab the card, but Loki simply glared at him and caused him to stand down. Even still, after the first glare, Snape calmed down a lot, the effect of the uniqueness diminishing on him after Elaine grasped it with her still chubby hands. Big Brother is the best TTTT. Elaine squealed, causing Loki to giddily laugh in joy before squeezing Elaine's cheeks and giving her a smooch on her head. Elaine left accommodating the uniqueness for later when she could rest properly in a safe spot, but Loki interrupted her. I know a place where you can accommodate the uniqueness safely on your own. Do you want to go there? We can explore the castle on the way, that way you don't have to remain hidden in his teeth all day. Elaine gave a slightly pity-filled look at Snape's shadow from where a whine emerged before shouting out, "Don't worry, Fenrir. This big girl will be back later to play with you once again." Woof. Good boy. Loki laughed at the apparent exchange before Elaine turned to him and looked at him seriously and nodded. Elaine would like to accommodate the uniqueness sooner than later. With that said, the brother and sister pair got up from their seats and walked out of Snape's office room, leaving the man behind as they began their journey towards the room of requirements. Loki allowed Elaine to meet with Norberta on the way up, and they also met Hermione, Astoria and Daphne. Hermione, Astoria and Elaine all looked at each other competitively for some reason before Daphne stepped in and started stuffing Elaine's mouth full with a bout of cheesecake, making Elaine seem rather stuffy and chubbier than she already looked as she somehow gulped down everything with a side of pumpkin juice. They explored the castle, meeting various teachers including McGonagall, who seemed rather awestruck by Loki's little copy, before making sure to allow Elaine to touch her cat form and then weeing her with a remarkable rat catch that caused Elaine to squeal in joy. Of course, no one knew apart from Snape that Elaine was the true god of the moon pathway, but they all treated Elaine with equal respect until Loki and Elaine finally reached the room of requirements. Ready to accommodate your uniqueness, little sis? Yes. Elaine nodded fervently, but then she paused and looked at Loki with a soft, forlorn expression. It will take me time to do so. Promise you will keep visiting Elaine in her dreams. I promise. Loki nodded, stretching out his pinky for Elaine to grab. The two siblings shook on the promise before Elaine entered the room of requirements by herself, leaving Loki behind as she began the long process of accommodating her uniqueness. Loki looked at her and felt rather proud. Look how fast she's grown up. Only yesterday she was talking to me so cutely while sitting on my lap. Loki adjusted his monocle before opening his pocket watch to look at the time. Not enough time to go to the ministry and be back. Wait, I can just use an avatar to go to school instead of myself. Loki snapped his finger to create an avatar which was only at sequence 5 itself and asked it to attend classes instead of him. And instead of going to school, Loki shifted his focus to the ministry. Loki repeated Laura's spirit messenger ritual inside his mind. The spirit that wanders about the unfounded. The higher dimensional creature that a human orders. The messenger that belongs to Laura Drake. Only this time, instead of letting anything be summoned out of the spirit world, Loki decrypted Laura's position by seeing where the target of the ritual was in the spirit world. There, Loki said once he spotted Laura through the ritual. And within the blink of an eye, Loki was there in front of Laura, in her office, causing her to throw all caution to the wind and nearly attack him immediately. Loki stole Laura's thoughts of attacking him almost immediately, causing her to freeze in place. A few alarms went off in her head, but Loki quickly raised his hands by then. "I come in peace, Madam Laura." Peace. Laura, only now realizing who it was that had appeared in front of her, calmed down and smiled joyously. "It's you. A rude way to enter a woman's room, don't you think so?" Loki laughed appropriately before bringing up the topic for his sudden appearance. "Madam Laura, I'm here to collect my reward." "Your reward?" Laura repeated softly as if recollecting some distant memory, so Loki helped her. "You promised me to let me see the Department of Mysteries Time Turner's collection if I helped your husband leave the abyss." Laura's eyes widened before she nodded. "Yes, I remember, the Wall of Time, but, are you sure?" "Are you sure?" Loki repeated the question, puzzled about its meaning, so Laura explained this time. "Minister Fudge has recently become a high-value target. He was supposed to die and he somehow lived, after which he suddenly went missing, just like that. Vanished directly from his room. So are you sure you want to open the door to the Wall of Time at a time like this?" Loki frowned. Were his actions motivated by any external factors? Well, while it was true that he was here to complete his Sequence 1 advancement ritual, that was only an internal reason and had nothing to do with anyone else. So Loki nodded firmly. "I'm sure it has nothing to do with him in any way, and why are you even afraid of a Sequence 4 that got to his seat only because the White Lord helped him?" Laura studied Loki's smug grin and chose not to comment on his question. Instead she simply said, "All right then, if it is as you say, follow me." Loki followed her quietly. Since they were already inside the Department of Mysteries, they didn't have to enter a special department. Instead, Laura quietly navigated the silent corridors of the Department of Mysteries until they arrived at a rather silent and ominous-looking door. It was a door that Loki recognized, at least partially. "Is that mind-bending place beyond this?" Laura nodded. Then she spoke, "You just need to step beyond this and keep going straight. You'll eventually reach the place we so fondly call the Wall of Time." "Wall of Time, huh, I suppose I'll know why it is called that once I reach there." Laura simply nodded. Loki accepted the challenge after that and pushed open the door slightly and slipped inside. Curiously, the door had no weight to it. It was as if it didn't exist at all and was only there as a showpiece. Crossing over to the other side had Loki feeling tense as he clamped up, since he didn't like the feeling of having to choose between his memories and the feeling of time. However, surprisingly, this time the choice didn't come. Loki waited patiently, wondering if there was only a short delay this time, but no matter how long he waited, the choice didn't come. Is it to do with the fact that I'm a Sequence 2 angel now? Or does it have something to do with the primordial chaos that's in the Saphira Castle? It has got to have something to do with me, since otherwise Laura would have warned me about it. Told me that I shouldn't expect any defenses. And the ministry would have been a lot more chaotic if the Department of Mysteries' defenses went down all of a sudden. So it has something to do specially with me. Why? Not finding any answers, standing around and waiting, Loki decided to continue walking forward. After all, the only way he could get any more answers was by exploring further. So explore Loki did. He watched the gears on the walls ticking by with their spirit threads quietly. He watched the other people in the same line guarding the various doors having lost their minds partially. He watched the dolls that were tied up at the ceilings decide the highest danger level was him once again, as they all gravitated towards him until he covered himself with more of the gray fog. Loki kept walking, however, and eventually he reached a grand wall. "I can't believe this thing was always so close by. If I'd have known that I just had to keep walking straight, I'd have been here long ago." In front of Loki was a grand wall filled with time turners. Each time turner constantly flicked between time, swirling in seconds as they ticked, and measured time in minutes all at once to keep the Department of Mysteries safe. Who made all these time turners using the worms of time, I wonder? Loki asked himself rhetorically, since he still remembered the divination he had performed to find out the creator of the time turner or even understand how it was made. The result at the time had been simple. The maker of the time turners was Mr. Error, or someone Loki had mistaken as Mr. Error. Loki still remembered that the time turners were made by Gehrman Sparrow using the worms of time blessed by someone sitting in the Mr. Error seat in the Saphira Castle. But after the fourth epic there was only one possible Mr. Error that could have been in the Saphira Castle, since the original Loki, the one who had defeated Mother Goddess of Depravity, was still recovering from the corruption of the primordial chaos. The remnant will of the previous Mr. Error. Loki noticed the spirit threads from all over the place tie back to each individual time turner in the place. No wonder I couldn't steal them or even manipulate them before. These things aren't just spirit threads connected to time turners, these are spirit threads connected to the worms of time used to create the dust in the time turners. These are the final remnant will of the previous Mr. Error that I killed. He would have foreseen his death and made a plan to circumvent it by creating several time turners so that anyone that used it would become a conduit for him to resurrect in. Unfortunately for him, my past self gathered all his time turners and turned them into a grand defense system for his resting ground while he regained strength from absorbing the corruption of the primordial chaos after the war of the fourth epic. Loki easily decrypted this, since the only person capable of finding all the time turners at once was his past self when he was awake for the final time in the fourth epic, when he gave Nicholas the runic spellcasting method. How do I go past all this then? Loki pondered for a few seconds before his eyes sparkled with a hint of mischief. With a simple swish of his hand, Loki stole the primordial chaos baby from the Saphira Castle and brought it before himself. And the theft worked like magic. The time turners that were constantly turning around in their places, measuring time and constantly keeping track of threats to the door in the present by traveling to the future, all stopped immediately. Loki looked at the baby in his hands and smiled. You work even when you're asleep. Good job. With that said, Loki hid the baby in a blanket of the gray fog and came close to the door and picked up a single time turner. Ah, I can feel it, Loki mumbled. He dearly wished to crush all the time turners embedded into the door and break them open to consume the Beander characteristics in the form of dust of worm of time in them, but he held back. One, because he hadn't told Laura that he would be doing so, but more importantly than all, the fact that he might possibly need the time turners to finish his sequence 1 worm of time advancement ritual held him back. And so Loki quietly pushed the door open. The door swung similarly to before, soundlessly and without weight, as if it never existed, only this time what lay on the other side, shocked and surprised Loki to his core. Is that the door in the full pathway uniqueness? Loki entered the door with awe in his eyes and mouth partially open. However, he could not express his surprise and confusion at the moment because there was someone else present to ruin it for him. What are you doing? Loki didn't get the chance to finish his question since Minister Fudge spoke over him. So, what do you decide? Loki barely had a fraction of a second to decrypt the scenario in front of him as he rushed his mind at speeds he never before had thought possible. What's Fudge doing here? Talking to a lamp. Lamp. Magic wishing lamp. Son of chaos. But why is Fudge here? That was when Loki saw an uncertain mist evaporate from Fudge's clothes. He was in a hurry and he was losing control over his mythical creature form. Uncertain mist. Is Fudge here to convince the Son of Chaos to give up and merge with the uncertain mist in the cosmos? Loki's heartbeat sped up. Had he just stumbled upon the deal of a lifetime? If things went right now, he could surely advance by leaps and bounds all at once. How does Fudge intend to merge the uncertain mist and the Son of Chaos? Is it through a vortex-weaving ritual? After reaching that point in his decryption, Loki instantly stole Minister Fudge's thoughts to delay the next action from occurring. Loki instantly parasitized Minister Fudge without regret, turning him into an avatar immediately. However, since this was a Sequence 5 Dream Stealer avatar, Loki's new avatar successfully deceived the uncertain mist into thinking that it still retained control over Fudge through its boon over him, just like Loki's other Sequence 5 avatar Voldemort had deceived its owner Mother Tree of Desire. Loki then finally looked at Son of Chaos, who was still inside his lamp, and spoke calmly. You did not accept his offer because there was a risk in which personality of yours, your current personality or your outer god uncertain mist personality, would emerge victorious if you both merged, am I wrong? You wished to be the dominant personality with 100% surety, am I wrong? Son of Chaos. The lamp trembled at the mention of its real name. Loki, still holding the primordial chaos baby hidden by the gray fog, showed it to the lamp. Look, your father. He's here. Won't you say hello to him? Loki prompted kindly only for the lamp to shiver further. All right, I'll stop joking, come out and accept the ritual. I can give you at least a 75% guarantee that you'll be the dominant personality once you merge with your outer self. There was a short silence before the genie eventually snuggled out of its lamp. Although a cautious look remained on his face, he was also eager to know if the bait Loki had thrown at him was true or false. He looked at Loki and Loki provided him with the proof. I shall involve in the ritual 2 unattainable anchors for you as you currently are. Which 2 anchors? The genie asked softly. Rowena Ravenclaw, a great old one and a pillar using the knowledge of more Sephiroth. The genie trembled. And the second anchor? The genie asked with undivided attention, since if the first anchor for itself was going to be a pillar of the universe, the uncertain mist personality, which was a remnant authority after it lost its Sephiroth to the original creator awakening, might lose in a fight against him about 25% of the time, because it still had the help of Mother Goddess of Depravity and Mother Tree of Desire in the cosmos. But if there was also a second anchor of the same level, then he would win at least 50%. Especially since he was going to be contesting from within the barrier where the influence of the uncertain mist in the cosmos was the weakest. Which would only push it further. Loki smiled mysteriously before revealing the second anchor. Who else but him? Loki said calmly, unveiling the primordial chaos baby. The genie shivered when the gray fog veil fell and the primordial chaos was revealed. For a second he was about to return to his most comfortable dwelling in the magic wishing lamp, but Loki said something that sparked his interest further. He has parasited the primordial chaos, so temporarily, as long as the uncertain mist does not immediately win, you can be guaranteed a 75% chance at being the dominant personality once the vortex ritual begins. After all, what better anchor than someone on the original creator level? Silence reigned supreme as the Son of Chaos pondered seriously to make a decision while Loki thought on his own question. Is this the power of Dumbledore's prophecies? Was it so easy all along to become the error pathway true god? I should have gotten in Dumbledore's good graces long ago then. Why did I not? Loki lamented. At that point the genie in the lamp asked the most crucial question in the moment. And what do you gain in the process? Of course. The vortex ritual will include the advancement of Mr. Error and his revival. And all those in the ritual will have to power it to keep it running until then. This was the bait Loki was going to use to attract Rowena. After all, she could be least bothered by the fact that the Son of Chaos was going to escape Earth and merge with its counterpart in the cosmos. So Loki was going to use a property of the vortex rituals to make Rowena and by extension the Son of Chaos into his personal bodyguards as he ascended up to Great Old One and finally original creator status. Each vortex ritual had a simple property. That all of the participants in the ritual, unless not satisfied with their transactions that were promised when the ritual began, would cause the ritual to exist forever until they were finally satisfied and the ritual stopped. This allowed Loki to do something simple. It allowed him to start the ritual with 3 demands. The first demand was simple: Son of Chaos and Uncertain Mist would merge together in a fair fight for dominance. This would trap the Son of Chaos in the ritual. The second demand was even simpler: Rowena would pray for the Son of Chaos for as long as the merging process was continuing. This was to trap Rowena in the ritual. But the third demand was the most important for Loki. The Son of Chaos and Rowena Ravenclaw would, for as long as Mr. Error had not resurrected, protect him and pray to him to not let the ritual end. This was to establish an anchor for Mr. Error in the original creator until Loki's past self resurrected. The wording of the demand was intentionally vague. Because neither Rowena nor the Son of Chaos knew that Mr. Error could not resurrect until Loki reached original creator status. And Loki had a simple plan to achieve that. As soon as Loki had become a Sequence 2 Trojan Horse of Destiny, Loki had gotten a new ability. The ability to steal the original identity's spurt body, consciousness and psyche and turn into the original identity upon the original identity's death. According to the goddess of fortune, past Loki only had one restriction. The restriction was that he would not resurrect before his avatar reached original creator status. Which meant that he could at least die before then, and because there was no longer the need for past Loki to keep his memories coherent with present Loki, it meant that he could die and take a break until he was reborn. Which gave Loki the perfect opportunity to pull of the unthinkable. Loki would steal past Loki's identity before he resurrected to automatically ascend to King of Angels status directly without ever needing to go through the advancement ritual. After that, as long as Loki advanced to Sequence 0 Error status and then Great Old One status and finally Original Creator status, past Loki could resurrect freely. It would take time, which was why for the duration Loki was a King of Angels, he would need bodyguards to keep him safe from all harm until he advanced to Original Creator status while he was merged with the primordial chaos in place of past Loki. So above all, Loki was about to deceive two Great Old One level beings. And even more if the uncertain mist decided to include Mother Goddess of Depravity and Mother Tree of Desire to secure its own victory in the merging process. Finally, the Son of Chaos agreed. All right, I agree, the Son of Chaos said, and Loki smiled his widest before making the parasitized Minister Fudge begin the vortex ritual. Minister Fudge immediately burst into an uncertain mist of ginormous proportions. His face expanded, along with his eyes and his nose, as his entire body was stretched thin into an uncertain bloody mist. The form was grotesque and unsightly for both Loki and the Son of Chaos, but they bore through the process since it was linked directly to their new and upcoming freedom. The uncertain mist then contacted four beings at once. The first was the uncertain mist itself, its master and the one that wished to initiate the merger. The second was the Son of Chaos, who wished to merge and emerge as the dominant party in the ritual. The third was Rowena Ravenclaw. She was spiritually given the reason Loki had given the genie, to protect Mr. Air through his revival. The fourth was none other than the primordial chaos itself. The final results were as follows. The uncertain mist accepted. Albeit as predicted, it invited two more people into the ritual. Mother Goddess of Depravity and Mother Tree of Desire. Both of them accepted too. The Son of Chaos accepted, albeit belatedly, as he waited until he saw Rowena Ravenclaw accept, since he could use her as a shield for as long as the three outer gods ganged up on him. The primordial chaos tried to reject. But this was already foreseen by Loki. Since the uncertain mist had called Mother Goddess of Depravity and, she, had accepted. The primordial chaos found its only opportunity to return to its womb. So the primordial chaos also accepted, even more eagerly. And so the vortex ritual began. Now it was impossible for even an angel to interrupt it or cancel it. And since the participants were Great Old Ones, they wouldn't even allow the ritual to end in the first place. The ritual was under their protection. Of course, the primordial chaos tried to break the ritual and jump directly towards Mother Goddess of Depravity. However, the primordial chaos was weakened severely by past Loki, and couldn't muster up the energy to break a ritual initiated by a vortex bearer who had involved three Great Old Ones in the ritual. After all, if it persisted in trying to break the ritual and merge with Mother Goddess of Depravity, past Loki would fully erase it and attain to original creator status immediately. But this was a chance par to any other. Loki used this chance flawlessly. Loki infused the primordial chaos with all his 296 remaining worms of time to parasitize it. The primordial chaos was instantly hit by 296 parasitism attempts. Of course they all failed. But the primordial chaos that was already weakened by trying to break the vortex ritual and being parasitized by past Loki was weakened further. To top it all off, Loki finally pulled out his wand and performed his self-created spell. Mens Velox Acus. Almost instantly the primordial chaos's body of heart and mind crumbled. The weakened primordial chaos was weakened further. To the extent that the primordial chaos had to enter hibernation to save himself. Only this was the plan all along. Past Loki snatched up the opportunity to dominate the primordial chaos and became the dominant personality momentarily. Attaining original creator status temporarily. Only that wasn't what was needed, so in a shocking turn of events past Loki killed himself. Not one to waste the golden opportunity, Loki instantly capitalized on it by stealing the main body's spirit body, consciousness and psyche. It was a theft of a century as Loki felt himself dissolve and reappear. Not in the sanctum sanctorum of the two other uniquenesses of the Lord of the Mysteries pathways, but inside the primordial chaos himself. But with the primordial chaos temporarily asleep, Loki was equal to the original creator himself. However, things were still not idle. Since Mr. Error from the deal died, Rowena was freed from the ritual. So she instantly decided to leave, since risking corruption from Mother Goddess of Depravity and Mother Tree of Desire to wait until his resurrection was not worth it. The Son of Chaos was about to instantly lose in the battle against Uncertain Mist. After that, however, Loki had already calculated that far ahead. Rowena had betrayed him for her own interests earlier. Now that Mr. Error was dead, she would of course do the same thing again. However, Loki had already planned for this to occur. And here Loki was about to use the weapon Rowena had given him on herself. Loki, inside the primordial chaos's body, pulled out the paper crane that Rowena had given him. Loki bestowed it with his will and corrupted it rather easily. After all, he was currently a being with original creator status. The goddess of fortune manifested at that moment. Not as a beautiful lady, but as the snake that ate its own tail. Reboot. The goddess of fortune used reboot. The entire scenario reset back by only a few seconds, right up until the ritual just began. Rowena was returned to her spot after accepting the ritual forcibly. And since Loki was currently at original creator level, he was unaffected by the reboot. So by extension, past Loki stayed dead. But the primordial chaos was currently weaker than Loki and currently suppressed, so it was affected. And so it was brought back to the time when he had just accepted the ritual but was completely and utterly destroyed by Loki and caused it to fall asleep. This was why Loki had chosen to involve himself in the vortex ritual right now. Because he could weaken the primordial chaos enough to overtake it. So Loki, as primordial chaos, was constantly protected by Rowena. Now all that was left was the fact that Loki had to truly advance to sequence 0 error and then finally to Great Old One status by absorbing the uniquenesses before him before absorbing the Sephira. After that, he would be free to truly advance to original creator status, and his current position wouldn't just be symbolic. At this moment, now that Loki had attained to original creator status, the past Loki could now resurrect. And resurrect he did. Amidst the chaos that was the vortex ritual, the past Loki resurrected right there. As an avatar of the current Loki. Although he did not keep his psyche or consciousness or even spirit body, he still remembered what he had to do because Loki gave him a command. Absorb the full set of sequence 9 to sequence 1 characteristics of the full pathway. And so within the next 2 reboot cycles, past Loki diligently absorbed the sequence 9 to sequence 1 Beander characteristics that the present Loki had separated from the Hanged Man. Past Loki didn't care for not completing the rituals because all Loki were incorruptible. Corruption couldn't reduce Locus to madness. It would at most manifest as ravings in the background. This had already been tested when past Loki advanced without completing the rituals for the error pathway. However, past Loki had also already completed most of the high sequence rituals. He had killed a demigod by orchestrating a grand performance several times in the second chaotic epic. He had already been separated from reality for 300 years by being asleep and fighting off the corruption from the primordial chaos. He had also been forgotten to history after Salazar Slytherin concealed any mention and knowledge of the Lord of the Mysteries pathways. Past Loki had already returned a piece of history that had been left behind to the present era. Past Loki had already brought back the remnant will of the original Mr. Error into the picture for the entirety of the 4th epic. The original Mr. Error was already dead at that point, and he had been left behind in history and was returned to the present era. Past Loki had already made a town of marionettes, with each marionette having its own fated trajectory by using Loki's converted members of the Aurora Order that he had marionetted. Past Loki had also already fooled history by collaborating with Salazar Slytherin in erasing the Lord of the Mysteries pathways from history. Past Loki had already completed each ritual of the high sequence of the full pathway. As soon as he finished consuming the sequence 1 characteristics, the rest of the 2 sequence 1 characteristics were mixed along with the uniqueness that was hanging on the door uniqueness to form the sequence 0 full pathway potion. At this stage, the primordial chaos stepped out of the vortex, not out of the ritual, only out of the vortex, using the authority of the original creator before looking at past Loki and drinking his own potion. A liquid formed by overlapping layers of segmented worms. The sequence 0 potion of the error pathway. Loki made this potion by stealing the worm of time connected to his fate due to Dumbledore's prophecy, like he stole the chalice of Helga Hufflepuff from the vault inside Gringotts. He dropped in the uniqueness, the monocle, into the potion to complete it and looked at past Loki and shared a smile for all the troubles they had been in to reach this moment. They looked at each other one last time before Loki first gulped his potion and then past Loki gulped his. Almost instantly Loki parasitized past Loki and replaced him in the ritual. Loki closed his eyes but could see. Loki opened his eyes but could not see. Loki could not hear the talks of the great old ones by his side, but he could also hear the whispers and wanings of their close sense of losing control because of the presence of the primordial chaos. Loki could simultaneously feel the errors occurring all across the planet, a nascent programmer cursing his misfortune at having to do overtime because of a bug, a shopkeeper cursing at his cash register for getting stuck, a carpenter cursing at the measurements he so deliberately calculated to become wrong, a cab driver gleeful at the error that caused his fare to increase by leaps and bounds. Loki could feel it all. He could also feel the errors happening on his own body like it were an amalgamation of the errors of all those across the planet. He could feel his vision elongate, he could feel sound suddenly occasionally pass right through him as if he didn't exist. He was being consumed by the potion. Suddenly, however, anchors formed in Loki's heart as he heard the prayers of the Tarot Club all at once. A coincidence, but one that helped solidify Loki's humanity. Loki grabbed onto the opportunity and cogitated his body, freeing it of any errors while keeping his divine sense spread across the astral realm intact. If the universe could clap, it would clap in this moment. After all, Loki had finally reached error god status. Loki immediately reincarnated past Loki as an avatar before turning to the Saphira castle and immediately accommodating it. And since like Klein there was no other personality to fight off for him inside the castle, the accommodation was instant. Since the Saphira castle had already deeply intertwined with him when he became the error god, it took no time to accommodate the castle itself. Now Loki was a great old one. A being that spanned not just the planet but a pillar of the universe itself. He had gone from sequence 2 Trojan horse of destiny to great old one status in only a few moments. Having turned into a great old one with speed that would turn the fastest of progressing Beyonders blue-green with envy, Loki finally turned to the primordial chaos. Loki looked at the primordial chaos with interest. It was still asleep because Loki had hurt it so badly and because of the reboot. Seeing he had time, Loki absorbed all the Beyonder characteristics freely available to him in the Wall of Time. Then Loki grabbed a hold of the door pathway uniqueness and turned it into a resplendent staff shimmering with stars. Loki turned the uniqueness of the Fool pathway into gloves for his hands before turning the uniqueness of the Error pathway into a glitching hat and the monocle at the same time, an error suitable for the uniqueness. Loki now looked like a proper noble. After all that, Loki finally killed the primordial chaos and took its place by fully and deeply parasitizing it and turning it into himself by stealing its fate, identity and its spirit body. At this moment a crack rang across the wide universe as all the Beyonder characteristics experienced a qualitative change. They all pointed from the previous original creator to Loki, who was the new original creator. Except this original creator did not have the urge to kill anyone or awaken in them, leading to zero madness for all Beyonders instantly. The ritual was still ongoing since the Son of Chaos had never merged with the uncertain mist because of the reboot, so Loki turned towards the Goddess of Fortune. He looked at her through the reboot Ouroboros present atop everyone at the Sanctum Sanctorum of the Department of Mysteries. She was a beautiful woman, one that Loki immediately recognized. "Daphne," Loki whispered. Daphne smiled at Loki and paused her reboot. 3 things happened after that. The Son of Chaos instantly merged with the Uncertain Mist as Loki manipulated the Uncertain Mist and erased him from existence by simply stealing his identity as the Error Pathway True God. The Son of Chaos, now the primary identity in the merger, turned towards Loki from the cosmos and thanked him before leaving him alone. Loki was terrifying. Mother Goddess of Depravity was next. Loki stole all her authorities as the current original creator and banished her to the edge of the cosmos, as he did for Mother Tree of Desire. Both the women were shocked, surprised and bamboozled. They had not had even an inkling of what was happening inside the planet because of the barrier. They had only taken part in the ritual because of the Uncertain Mist asking their help for fighting a fight for the dominant persona. So how did they suddenly lose their authorities and become banished? Loki had simply toyed with the concept of an error. After all, they were so close to the primordial chaos through the ritual, and by extension the original creator. If the last time with the original creator woke up they lost their Sephiroth and Beander characteristics, now that there was a fully powered original creator standing by their side through the vortex ritual, why should they not lose everything else? Loki smiled but wasted no breath on them, for they were now worse than ghosts that would die naturally once they slowly realized the lack of their characteristics. Their countless enemies would kill them for sure. Instead he turned towards Daphne, who had been afflicted by the same curse as him. She was also corrupted by the primordial chaos. Loki stole away her corruption and things finally slowed down after that. "You're safe now," Loki whispered to Daphne, brushing her cheek. Daphne blushed before nodding softly. "I've waited too long for this." Loki nodded. "I know, I've regained my memories." Loki had regained his original memories. Not the memories of his time as past Loki, but his memories of his time as the universe's original creator himself. Yes, Loki was the original creator for this universe. He had originally transmigrated directly into the original creator in the universe the first time he arrived into this world. Lois still remembered the transmigration office. "What universe do you want to go into?" A being of unparalleled might and intelligence asked him. "I want to go into Lord of the Mysteries." "No, scratch that, let's make it Harry Potter for safety's sake," Loki said calmly after he had been sent here by the transmigration truck. However, the magnanimous being who would send Loki to another world was in a hurry. And so as soon as Loki said that he wished to go to the Lord of the Mysteries world, the transmigration process had already begun. "Wait, you want to go to the Harry Potter world?" the being asked, surprised, before changing the trajectory of Loki from a random person in the LOTM world into the original creator himself so that Loki could create the world he wanted. And so in the world where the three children of the original creator had already been born, Mother Goddess of Depravity, Mother Tree of Desire and the Son of Chaos, Loki infested the original creator. However, since Loki was about to succumb to madness because he could not hold such power so immediately, Loki was forced to split himself off from the original creator after making preparations for himself. And that preparation was the Goddess of Fortune, who had one job: to resurrect him as many times as it would take for him to become the original creator. She had tried several times, even getting corrupted in the last one when she tried to directly create Loki and superimpose him with the image of the original creator, but since that was when Mother Goddess of Depravity got impregnated with the primordial chaos and the original creator turned into the primordial chaos which gave birth to the original will of the original creator, the Goddess of Fortune failed and was corrupted instead. Now Loki could only become the original creator himself by crawling up through the sequences himself and claiming the throne. Now Loki had regained all these memories. He looked at Daphne with a kind gaze before petting her hair softly. "Thank you, comma." A few years later. "Mommy, which god should I choose?" "Whichever you want to, child, since in the end they all lead back to Mr. Error." "Yeah, I want to be as cool as Mr. Error too. I'll join the Slytherin house and digest all my potions before becoming Mr. Error myself." The mother looked at the child with a kind smile, since this was how she was when she was a child. She still remembered the first days the news about true gods was released to the public. She remembered the chaos it had caused and how Mr. Error had been there to support them through all of it by punishing the evil doers and rewarding the kinder people himself. Several gods were by his side throughout, be it the founders of Hogwarts who were surprisingly true gods themselves, or Merlin himself reborn as Dumbledore, or even Mr. Error's little tail Elaine the Moon Goddess. They were all gentle with the good and harsh on the evil. It was a lot of work, but eventually when she was at age for coming to Hogwarts, Hogwarts unveiled a new program. The Beander Partnership Program, which allowed all kids to turn into Beander of pathways of their choosing. This set an unprecedented new tone in the previous dull life of wizards and witches. After all, even muggles could become Beanders, so the competition to prove yourself worthy of becoming one and advancing through the sequences was rare and strugglesome. It was as exciting as the Arcadia Royale games that the gods used to entertain themselves using their followers. She had struggled as the Death Pathway Beander and rose to the rank of a Sequence 5 gatekeeper. She just wished for her son to do the same. Then she could proudly show him off to the neighbors whose daughter was already a Sequence 8 clown. HMPF. Clowns and their jokes. They should stay in a circus, those freaks. Did you say something, Mom? Nothing. Just remember, no matter what you must not join the fool pathway. Okay. Yes mama. I will only join the fool pathway. The kid shouted and rushed onto the train, immediately leaving the mother dumbfounded on the platform. You fool. Excuse me miss, a man suddenly stepped in to talk to the distraught parents of the rather naughty child. Yes. The mother asked, fuming while the father tried to hold her back. I might have a solution to your problem. I have a few connections in the right places, and I might be able to get your son into the error pathway. Would you be interested? The error pathway? You must be kidding. That's such a high demand pathway. Only the best students each year are even selected for consideration. The mother squealed, unbelieving and wondering if this was possibly a scam. The man smiled politely before speaking. Well, I have a few connections, so it'll be alright. As proof, you can contact the error god and ask him if it is the truth. What do we call you, mister? The father asked eagerly. The seller nudged a monocle on his right eye before speaking. Oh, me. Have I not introduced myself yet? Please call me Mr. Error. XX the end XX. Thank you for supporting the book so far. Your comments and donations to my Patreon have kept me motivated and encouraged me to finish the book throughout, no matter the conditions I was in. Overall, the book went on for way longer than I had planned, and the story veered way of course than what I had originally planned. But I felt this was more fun to write, so the story took the shape you all read and saw. Above all, I had great fun writing the book. But as all things good, this too has to come to an end, and I hope to carry over even a fraction of the joy and skill I gained from writing this book to my future books. Thank you for your support once again, since without you it would not have been possible. Leave a review or donate to my Patreon if you wish to support the book further, but that's all from me for a while. I hope you keep supporting me and help me on my next books just like this. Thank you. P.S. Let me know what sort of books you'll like to read next. I'm currently working on an original like The Second Coming of Gluttony, but wouldn't mind writing a fanfic on the side along with it. For more thrilling fanfiction stories like this, check out my channel Fanfic Audiobook. Dive into epic adventures, mysterious realms, and legendary journeys brought to life through immersive storytelling. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing audiobooks.